The first organ system to be studied in anatomy and physiology is the integumentary system. It is called the integumentary system because the integument is another name for the skin. The skin is the major organ of the integumentary system and is the focus of this video. The entire system is looking at the body's covering plus any accessory organs. The functions of the integumentary system are many. One is protection. In the case of protection, it is a physical barrier, it is a chemical barrier, in the physical barrier, it protects us against abrasions, rubbing against something rough, or injury due to a cut. Chemical, how many times do we put our hands into dish soap? When we take a shower, we use soap. Those are chemicals, but then again, we come into some harsher chemicals as well. It is heavily involved in thermoregulation. When you are overly warm, the blood rushes to the skin so that heat can be dissipated. But when you are cold, the blood rushes away from the skin so that it is retained. Pigmentation is a function of the skin. The melanocytes, which produce the pigment melanin, are in the skin. It is involved in keratin synthesis. Your skin is relatively water resistant. It is not waterproof. The water resistance comes from this keratin protein that is found in the cells. Your skin synthesizes vitamin D. Vitamin D is very important in the structure of bones. It is a location where lipids are stored. You see them in this picture over here. Detection of stimuli. There are nerve endings that are very, very close, if not embedded, in the skin. It's also involved in coordinating the immune response. The skin is called the cutaneous membrane. It consists of two layers of tissue, one being an epithelial tissue and the other being connective tissue. Let's begin working from the outside of the skin inward. The outermost layer of the skin is called the epidermis. The epidermis consists of stratified squamous epithelium. Stratified squamous epithelium, if you recall, is multiple layers of cells that are squamous shaped or flat. If you recall looking at this under the microscope in lab, you can probably remember that it is very cuboidal-like toward the connection with the basement membrane, but as the cells move outward, they flatten. You have areas of thick skin. Thick skin is found on the palms and the soles. There we find a fifth layer of epidermis, which we don't find elsewhere. Thinnest skin in your body is probably on the eyelids. It is possible there that the epidermis only has 3 layers. Because the epidermis is an epithelial tissue, it is avascular. This means that all the nutrients and waste exchange has to occur with vessels that are in the connective tissue underneath. It is made up of cells that are called keratinocytes. They are called this because they produce keratin protein. This layer provides that physical protection by forming a physical barrier. The epidermis is made up of 5 layers. Now be very careful with this. The skin has 2 layers, but the epidermis has 5 layers. Working our way from the innermost layer outward, the inside layer is the stratum germinativum. It is typically a single layer of cells, which are stem cells. Now, when I think of germinativum, I think of germinate. To germinate means to grow. Well, if we have stem cells here, those stem cells are going to undergo frequent mitosis. It is said that new cells will push outward from the stratum germinativum in a period of 15 to 30 days. This layer also forms the epidermal ridges. You see all of these papilla located down here. Excuse me. Located here, these bumps and ridges. It really wants that other slide. These papilla, these epidermal ridges, are what form your fingerprints. Those are increasing the surface contact with the dermis. The blood supply is right here in these papilla. You can see a couple of vessels here and a couple here. Also located in here are Merkel cells, or Merkel's discs. This is a cell plus a nerve ending. These are receptors, and they respond to touch in the hairless portions of the skin. The melanocytes are located here. Melanocytes produce the pigment melanin. Melanin is what gives color to your skin. The number of melanocytes is constant. It will not change. You will always have the same number. The amount of pigment that you produce and the size of the granules are actually going to determine your skin color. There are actually 2 types of melanocytes. One is a red-yellow type and the other is a brown-black type. Epidermal growth factor is produced by the salivary glands as well as glands of the duodenum, which is in the GI tract. It has several functions that affect the epidermis. One is to promote mitosis in the stratum germinativum as well as the stratum spinosum. It speeds up keratin synthesis. In a different setting, it is used to grow sheets of cells for epidermal skin grafts, should an individual need that. Vitamin D3 is produced by cells in the stratum germinativum as well as the stratum spinosum in response to ultraviolet radiation. It is then further modified by the body to aid in calcium absorption in the small intestine. The next layer that we want to work with is the stratum spinosum. This is a very simple layer in comparison. It consists of about 8 to 10 layers of cells which have a spiny appearance, because here the desmosomes that are holding the cells together become apparent. These cells are involved in immunity against microbes and skin cancer. The next layer is the stratum granulosum. It has a grainy appearance in comparison. It is a little more complicated again than the stratum spinosum was. Me and PowerPoint and pens. We're having fun here. Excuse me. Okay, these cells are producing copious amounts of keratin, but also keratohyalin. The keratohyalin dehydrates and ultimately kills the cells. Look closely at the epidermal layers. We have nuclei down here. But as we move out, we don't have them any longer. The cells have died by that point in time. Keratin is a fibrous protein. It's filamentous, and that's one of the reasons that the cells flatten, because as it fills with keratin, it has all these long filaments within. The next layer is the stratum lucidum. Think about something that's translucent. You can sort of see through it. This layer is somewhat transparent as well, or translucent is the proper term. There are typically only 3 to 5 layers of cells here, and this is only found in the soles of your feet and the palms of your hand. They're flat cells, they're densely packed together, and they're filled with keratin. The outermost layer is the stratum corneum. It consists of about 15 to 30 layers of cells, and by now all of the cells are dead. It is water resistant, it is not waterproof. It does allow some absorption and dehydration. The dehydration that typically occurs is the insensible perspiration. It is the simple removal of water from your skin as the air to the air around you. The air around you is considerably drier than your skin is. It is also a location where we will find keratin. Now, keratin is a yellowish pigment. Yellow and orange vegetables contain keratin. Let's turn our attention to the dermis. Dermis is the second layer of the cutaneous membrane. It is the deep layer, and it consists of connective tissue. It has 2 layers also, meaning it has layers also, the epidermis having 5, the dermis having 2. The layers are the papillary layer, which is located here. It is the superficial layer of the dermis. It is called papillary because of all those papilla that we've talked about earlier. It makes up 20% of the dermis. It is consisting of areolar connective tissue. This is a loose, irregular connective tissue, which means that it has elastic and collagen fibers that are spaced fairly far apart. Also located in the papillary layer are Meissner's corpuscles. These are nerve endings that we call receptors. They are sensing light, touch, and are located in the dermal papilla. The Meissner's corpuscles, along with the Pacinian corpuscles that we will talk about in a few minutes, are providing the innervation, some of the innervation that we will see in the dermis. Next, let's take a look at the reticular layer, which is making up 80%, you see it right here, of the dermis. Now we are looking at a dense irregular connective tissue. The difference between this and the areolar tissue is that now our fibers, our collagen and elastic fibers, are packed very tightly together. You will find arteries and veins located in this area. Here's an artery, here's a vein. Nerve endings here are called Pacinian corpuscles. They sense deep pressure and vibration in this layer. Finally, we come to the hypodermis, which is also known as the subcutaneous layer, which is technically not part of the skin. It is important to the skin. It consists of areolar and adipose tissues.